Barcelona is suffering from the sweeper void. Hansi Flick is forcing a tactical blueprint that only works with a ghost, specifically the ghost of prime Ter Stegen. Without that profile, the system turns from a weapon into a burden. The center backs are left to chase shadows. These are the high-line warning signs Flick is ignoring. Once, the heart of Barcelona's defense radiated calm and control. Today, it's chaos. Ter Stegen would have stopped many of these counters, and if you don't believe me, the numbers, the positioning, the moments on the pitch, they all prove it. Barcelona football demands precision. You dot your I's, cross your T's, or you pay the price. And right now, they're paying. We're not just talking about goals conceded. We're dissecting a tactical blueprint that made Hansi Flick a legend at Bayern, one that is now exposing Barcelona's brightest talents to constant pressure. Here's the question no one wants to ask. Is the high line dead, or is it just missing its engine? To understand why Barcelona's defense is struggling, you first have to respect the ambition. The high defensive line exists for one purpose: to stretch the space behind the defense while compressing the rest of the pitch into one half. Visually, it looks like the center backs are standing on the halfway line, with the entire field packed into a tight corridor. When executed correctly, there are a few advantages. First, players conserve energy. It sounds counterintuitive for a high-intensity system, but because the team stays compact, they aren't sprinting 30 or 40 meters back every time possession changes. The opposition is suffocated in their own half. Second, pressure is applied systematically to the ball carrier. When done perfectly, it forces split-second decisions, panicked clearances, or turnovers. On paper, this is dominance. Barcelona has the most offsides in Europe. The talent to execute this trap is clearly there. Frenkie de Jong controls the midfield with calm authority, dictating tempo and orchestrating pressing triggers. Cubarsí, stepping into a demanding center-back role, is expected to cover massive distances while maintaining perfect positioning. But here's the twist. It worked until it didn't. Against Mallorca in La Liga, the line was repeatedly exposed, leaving Cubarsí scrambling as Mallorca strikers exploited the gaps. In the recent Champions League clash, the same pattern emerged, pacey attackers breaking behind the line while the defensive structure struggled to recover. The high line is a high-risk, high-reward gamble. It relies on opponents not having the time or space to pick a pass. The moment that pressure drops, even slightly, that defensive line on the halfway mark becomes a red carpet for fast strikers. And that's the missing chapter. The system assumes a safety net that isn't there, leaving young defenders like Cubarsí carrying the weight of a strategy built for a ghost, a Ter Stegen ghost. Like many of you know, Hansi Flick isn't just any manager. He comes with a decorated resume. His sextuple-winning Bayern Munich side pressed with ferocity, dominated opponents, and executed a high line to perfection. Remember the 8-2 thrashing of Barcelona? That match proves Flick's ideas can be devastating when he has the right players in the right system. But Barcelona isn't Bayern. Comparing this setup to Pep Guardiola's Manchester City only highlights a stark difference in personnel and context. Some might ask, is the team not good enough? The media narrative often frames it that way, claiming Flick is asking too much of young talents like Cubarsí and de Jong. But the truth is subtler. Flick is building a tactical skyscraper, but the foundation is missing its concrete. He insists on a system that requires a specific tool he no longer possesses, Ter Stegen as the sweeper. He points to offside stats as proof, but the goals conceded column tells the true story. So, is the system failing because of the manager, or because something crucial is missing behind the line? Blaming Flick alone misses the real mechanics behind the collapse. It's not just the line height, it's who is standing, or more importantly, who is not standing behind it. And that's the missing chapter that explains why Barcelona's high line is faltering and why the ghosts of past defeats still haunt the current squad. This brings us to the real villain of this story, not a player, not even the manager. The villain is the absence of something Barcelona's system quietly depended on for years, the sweeper keeper. Because the solution to this crisis was never complicated. It was Marc-André Ter Stegen. Ter Stegen was never just a shot stopper, he was a tactical tool. He read danger early, stepped 30 to 40 meters off his line, and erased the space behind Barcelona's high defensive line. He played as an 11th outfield player, a phantom sweeper who turned risk into control. And yes, that style does mean he occasionally concedes. But here's the part that gets forgotten. In the 2022-23 La Liga season, with that exact aggressive positioning, Ter Stegen conceded only 18 goals across the entire league campaign, the best defensive record in Spain, good enough to win the Zamora Trophy. That wasn't in spite of the high line. That was because of how perfectly his profile completed it. Barcelona could afford to live on the halfway line because they knew something, or someone, was sweeping up behind them. But when injury forced Flick into a different solution, that safety net vanished. The current goalkeepers are excellent shot stoppers, but they are penalty box goalkeepers, and in a system that leaves Eric Garcia and Pau Cubarsí defending 40 meters of open grass, that distinction is everything. Without a sweeper behind them, that space isn't just vulnerable, it's intimidating. Defenders feel it, they hesitate, they drop when they should step up. The entire line loses conviction because the system is asking them to trust help that never arrives. This is the high line warning signs. Flick is ignoring. Because the problem was never just the height of the line, it's the missing chapter behind it. The ghost of Ter Stegen, the sweeper who made chaos manageable, is no longer there. And without that ghost, the system stops being brave and starts being exposed. And so we arrive at the victims. Everyone has a theory. It's Pau Cubarsí's fault. Ronald Araújo doesn't have the IQ Barcelona needs. Jules Koundé should be playing center back. Alejandro Baldé is too attacking. And sure, in isolation, you can find moments that support every one of those arguments. But here's the uncomfortable truth. This is largely the same defensive group that was being praised not long ago. They were so reliable, so composed in possession, that fans and analysts stopped talking about individuals altogether. They talked about the backline as a unit, as a strength, as something Barcelona could finally trust again. What changed wasn't their ability. It was the margin for error. Imagine being a center back in this system. You're instructed to hold the halfway line. You step up because the system demands it. But you know, deep down, that if one ball travels over your head, your goalkeeper is still planted near his goal line. There is no safety net. So now every decision becomes impossible. Do you step up and trust the trap? Or do you drop early and break the line? That hesitation, that split second of doubt, is where the high line dies. Cubarsí, Araújo, Koundé, they aren't being reckless. They're being asked to play perfect football without protection. And when we freeze frame their mistakes, when we isolate their errors, we're usually not identifying the disease. We're pointing at the symptoms. The structure is collapsing before they can even make a decision. And the cruel irony is that they're the ones left holding the blame. A high line only works when the attack, midfield, and defense move as one. It's not a tactic, it's an ecosystem, and right now, that ecosystem is fractured. When Lamine Yamal reacts instead of resetting, when pressing is inconsistent at the front, and when the midfield press loses its timing, the strain multiplies. If the first pass isn't stopped, everything behind it is exposed. At that point, the defenders are already dead in the water. Yes, injuries play a role. But these breakdowns didn't exist to this extent before. This isn't random chaos, it's a chain reaction. It starts at the front, it slips through the midfield, it exposes the victims at the back, and it ends in the sweeper void, the space where Marc-André Ter Stegen used to erase danger before it became a crisis. So is it the players? Yes, partly. Is it the manager? Also yes, partly. But more than anything, this is about a refusal to adapt, a system being protected instead of the people inside it. And until that changes, this pattern won't break, it will repeat. The club saw this generational talent in their defense and acted decisively to promote them. But talent alone cannot survive a broken system. Until the architect adjusts the blueprints or the sweeper returns to fill the void, the victims at the back will continue to take the fall. Do you think Hansi Flick should abandon the high line until Ter Stegen returns, or is the risk worth the reward? And what do you think is Cubarsí's single greatest strength in this chaotic setup? Because in the end, these are truly the high line warning signs Hansi Flick is ignoring.